Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of Fusion 360 tutorial series, and in this episode we're going to talk about file management and its use in Fusion 360. So let's get started. So file management in Fusion 360 is done differently than most CAD softwares. There is no local kind of like Windows-like file management system, and component and assembly file types compared to other CAD softwares. Everything in Fusion 360 is located on the cloud. And this is kind of the main philosophy of Fusion 360, that doesn't matter where you are, you can access your designs, your files on different computers, different locations. And the other thing to notice for Fusion 360 is that its file management system is based on repository type systems. Like if you're doing any programming, you might be familiar with the systems like Git, where they do file management for codes. It's very similar to that. So let's get started. At the highest branch, files are organized in things called projects. So we can make a new project by clicking on the new project button on the top right hand side. So let's give this one a name, project test. Obviously it's taking its time, and the reason is that it's doing all the operations on the cloud. So I can go inside the project test by double clicking. It takes me to the next panel. In this panel we can see there are a whole bunch of settings on the top side. And for example, some of the things I can do is that I can upload an already existing CAD file, and it can be some generic third-party CAD files. I can make a new folder, and this is going to be a folder that's a subset of the main branch that we just created. So let's call it folder 1. And in this folder 1, I can put components that I upload, or I can save components that I create right in the Fusion 360. So let's create a component easily. We're just going to create a very simple cube here in the viewport. And let's just extrude that. Okay. So now let's save it. And here it gives me the kind of same sort of dialog box that you usually get when you're trying to save files on other softwares. But the difference is that there is no folders, and you only have projects and subfolders as part of those projects, but everything you see is on the cloud. So I selected folder 1 as part of the master branch of project test. Then I'm gonna press save, and now if I go inside folder 1, I'm gonna see this, well, untitled component saved, and there's a v1 version here. Again, since this is a repository type file management system, it kind of keeps track of all the versions and all the changes to the components and the files I make. So if I come here in the same file and I create a second cube right beside this guy, and I extrude it maybe a little bit longer, and I save it again, now you're going to see that the version here is going to go to v2. And if I click on this v2, it's actually a button, and it's going to open a kind of like a drop down menu here, which shows me my version 1, that was 1 cube, my version 2, there are 2 cubes now. And on the right hand side, I can see it open for my latest version, but for my previous versions I see an extra button which is called promote. So what promote does is that it's gonna promote it to be the latest version. So let's say I make a change, I save it, but I kind of regret it. I want to go back to a previous version and make my previous version my latest version. And if I click on this promote button, let's say I didn't really like my second cube. Now you can see that I created a third version, which is really the clone of my first version. Now, next time if I open this component, by default, it's gonna go to always the latest version, as it kind of makes sense. So there are other tabs here too. There are uses, they're used in. For example, let's say what other components this component is used in. Let's say if you have assemblies and stuff like that, where you've placed a couple of these components in that assembly. If there are any drawings associated, with this component, you can see it here too. And if you want to have any more details, you can just click on the, open details on the web. Then you can have access to more details. Also, it tells you which user which user has created this component, when this component was created, and that could be a good segue to how collaboration and kind of like designing in a team can be done in Fusion 360. So on the top menu, what we can see, there's a People tab. When you click on the People tab, it gives you a text box which you can enter the email addresses of your colleagues that you want to collaborate in, or they could be observers or your supervisor or somebody else, that needs to have access to your CAD file. So you put their email here and you say invite. After inviting them, what's going to happen is that they're going to get a link, and then once they approve the link, then they get access to your CAD file. Something that's important to notice is they also need to have Fusion installed and have an Autodesk account. Otherwise, you can't really share anything with them. But what if you want to send, let's say, a presentation or a 3D kind of presentation or 3D CAD to someone, either in your organization or to a friend or somebody outside that doesn't really need to have Fusion. They just want to see your concept. They just want to see your design. The way to do that is to right-click on your design and say Share Public Link. It's going to open a dialog box, and here you can enable the public link, and you just gotta wait a while, and yeah, there we go. So it generated a public link for you, and you can copy this link and send it to the person. You can also give him the option of whether he can download the design in a, let's say, generic third-party CAD like Step or iGuess, or you just want him to only view the file and have no way of downloading it. Let's say you want to protect your design. You can also create a password for this link, and that's easy to do too. So you just enable the password, and you just type a password here. Let's say test, and then you copy the file. Copy the address and send it to the person. It's as easy. Okay, and there are also other features available. They're a little bit more experimental, such as creating a branch. So branches are created when you want to have the project, then you want to branch off of that project and modify or customize some part of it for a specific, let's say, customer. Let's say you have a base design and you want to create specific designs based on that initial base design, and you want to have all of them saved and track each one of them. Okay, the other thing is that sometimes you're collaborating with some people and they add files, or maybe modify files. Once in a while you might want to press this refresh button, and that's going to give you the latest kind of the state of the project at any given time. So once you go back to the main panel again, you see that on the bottom here there are samples, and these are some of the tutorials and samples that Fusion 360 provides to just get you guys started. On the top here you see that there's a demo project, again provided by Fusion as default. This is the project we just created. And something you notice is that there's no real way to delete these projects. The closest you can come from this panel to deleting project is by right-clicking them and archiving them. Okay, so the projects from this panel are not deleted. So I can archive this guy and then it's gonna go away. But if I go to my browser and I access my Autodesk account, I can still have access to this project. So let's say you work on a project and you don't really use it anymore, so you don't really have to see it every day. You can just archive it, and then you come back maybe a year or two from there and access it again. The other button that we can see here is the cache button. So let's say you want to have access to this project in cases where you don't have any access to the internet. So let's say you're off somewhere, no access to the internet, but you want to have access to this project offline. So you can cache a copy, or the latest copy to be more exact, on your PC all the time. And that's it. So this is all that I could think of regarding the file management systems in Fusion 360. As always, you guys subscribe, and if you have any questions, please leave comments. Thank you. Bye.